Visiting Wilkes County on business or pleasure? Stay in Wilkesboro at the Holiday Inn Express, Hampton Inn, or Red Roof Inn and Suites. Enjoy Southern hospitality, cozy rooms, and a complimentary breakfast. Explore the mountains and then relax with us. You've earned it. Closed captions for this episode of Life in Wilkes is brought to you by Deal Insurance Agency in Wilkesboro, an award-winning, experienced, family-owned and operated agency with service and coverage that goes above and beyond expectations. Closed captions for this episode of Life in Wilkes is brought to you by Deal Insurance Agency in Wilkesboro, an award-winning, experienced, family-owned and operated agency with service and coverage that goes above and beyond expectations. Join us on a captivating journey as we explore the charm, history, and vibrant culture of Wilkes County. Discover the hidden gems, inspiring stories, and remarkable people that make Wilkes a place worth knowing and celebrating. Join us now and experience the unique essence of Life in Wilkes.
Sometimes, it's like you go to work and you know exactly what you need to do, and you know you're going to do it, and then you sit there for a second like, wait a minute. Did you ever do that?
I do. I've had a little problem with that this morning.
Gerald Lankford, it's awfully good to see you.
Carl, it's good to see you. I enjoyed this program a lot.
Well, good reason. You've been a big part of it. This is visit number 4.
Right.
Yeah. Have you been getting feedback from people?
Oh, I have. They people from Texas and Arkansas and Virginia and Maryland, my friends in all those places, in North Carolina, of course, and had a lot of response.
Are they saying nice things?
Nice things. Oh, yeah. Especially about you, Carl.
Oh, well, I'm sure that's we wouldn't be having these talks if you weren't so deep into the history of chickens.
Right.
I don't know. I think to say deep in the history of chickens is a bit of an understatement. When I think about what you did during all those years and what the most of your time was spent in human resources and just, helping to wrangle lots and lots of people. You had to have a big crew of people helping you do all that. But in that particular position, you got to see a lot of up-close stories, and not just about the industry, but about the people themselves, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Recruited a lot of good people from NC State and the University of Arkansas and the University of Georgia. A lot of good people that I was able to recruit and get into our firm. They're still a big part of what's going on with Tyson today.
Right. When you start naming off those schools, and I think we all know those are some impressive names and institutions, and it gives you a moment just to stop and think about, well, wait a minute, you're recruiting people with degrees and who have a lot of know-how, so that automatically elevates our thoughts toward, well, the chicken business evolved a lot over the years, and a lot of science began to come into play, right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It changed enormously. When I was a boy, it took 12, 14 weeks to grow a chicken. Now you do it in 6 weeks.
Wow.
And so they selectively bred the birds and turn them over to where they produce more, and they do it with less feed, and it is more economical. It's more economical for the general public to buy chicken than it is some other meat.
Well, I think the whole idea is if you were looking at the previous model, the amount of time it would take to raise the chicken was a lot longer. You'd have to feed it more, right? So all those things went into the equation, and those birds would have to cost a lot more.
That's right. Yes. with the way it is now, you can sell them for less and feed the world. You know,
that's a good approach. Well, let's pick up where we left off, because if I've got it right, during today's visit, we should get through most of the Tyson era,
right. The
Holly Farms era,
right.
before things switch over
right.
to Tyson.
Yeah, let me start by in the late '60s, when you get good. When we had by the time that we got the merger together and the Holly Pack perfected, and we were selling chickens all over the country, people look at you and they want to buy you.
Okay.
So we and we extended ourselves probably more than we maybe should have in those days in the mid '60s, and there's a company come along by the name of the Federal Company, located in Memphis, Tennessee, and they decided they wanted to buy us. And so they
Holly Farms.
That's right, by Holly Farms. And so they was an old company, 100 years old, that had been in the cotton business throughout the 100 years that they was in business. And that business kind of went away, and they had lots of assets and lots of good green money to spend, and they wanted to put that money in a place that would give them a good return. Okay. And they picked out, and we sold ourselves to them that we was a good place for that. We had a good thing going. We could see a good future for us. And so in 1968, the Federal Company and Holly Farms merged together with the stock swap, and Federal Company of Memphis, Tennessee became the parent company of Holly Farms.
Wow.
And it was a very good match. They didn't know anything about the chicken business, and we knew a lot about the chicken business. And so they said, "You boys, you boys do your thing, and as long as we make a good return, we're going to leave you alone." And they left us alone.
Okay, so that happened then.
That happened. They left us alone, and we went on to good stuff.
How did their infusion and that merger, how did that affect the people at Holly Farms? How did that affect the people in Wilkes County when that took place?
Very little. Very little. We almost didn't notice it. We was able to grow more. Okay. We was able to buy more plants and to increase production.
Was that the reason for doing that?
That's right. That was the reason. We had by then we had a plant in Monroe, a plant in Hidnot, North Carolina. Sure. We had a plant in Richmond, Virginia, Temperatesville, Virginia, Harrisonburg, Virginia, and Center, Texas, and Seguin, Texas, and we could fill those big orders anywhere we needed to fill them, and we was able to move along into that. Okay. And about that time, Junior Johnson came on the scene, and he was our main advertising person at that particular time. NASCAR was coming of age. NASCAR had more races and more drivers, and we sponsored Junior, and he was our spokesman for a good long while, and was very, very successful in doing that. One bit of trivia that comes along with that is that our service techs that went around from farm to farm to advise farmers and to check on our products, our chickens and things like that, each one of them had a two-way radio in their car, and they could communicate with whoever they needed to in the company through that. And Rex Lovett, who was Fred's younger brother, he was heavy into racing. He loved racing a lot, and so he decided, Junior needs a radio in his car when he's running around that track, so that he can speak to the to the pit crew, and he can tell them before he gets there what's wrong, what needs to be fixed, and what needs to be changed. So they put a radio in that car, and Junior could talk to him.
So that's the first time that happened?
That was the first time that happened.
Wow.
And you can just imagine what's happened since then.
Sure.
Because every race car driver in NASCAR has a radio set up that is unbelievable. I mean, TV cameras and all. And so that was the first time that happened with Junior. That was, we were coming of age.
Do you remember that time and what those beginning marketing activities were like? I know you were on the human resource side, but still yet you were at the top of the company too, so you got to see everything.
I got to see oh yeah. We could see that we were making ingrades into where we needed to be to reach our goal, which our goal we set somebody did back in the early 70s at least, that we wanted to become the number one fresh chicken in the country, and we set out to do that, and that's part of it. We hadn't got there yet, but we're getting there. Mm-hmm. We at the same time we had a fleet of airplanes, and I got a model of one right here. Right. We had a jet and 3 Aero Commanders, and we could fly around from different places. In our plants were not downtown big towns. They were in small places, and so we could send our folks, whether it be sales and marketing, whether it be production or maintenance, or whoever needed to go to Richmond or to Temperancefield or to Center, Texas. We could send them on our planes, and in most cases get them there cheaper and quicker, and these guys, Bob Tarkington and Elton Dickey and Robert. Well, I got Robert's name, but these people, they were our main pilots.
So did you spend much time on the plane?
I spent a lot of time on planes, yeah, mm-hmm. Sure did.
So it made getting around to all the factories a lot easier, right, and quicker?
Right, quicker and easier and less stressful. And we could do a day's work after we got to that plant in Richmond, where if we'd have taken a commercial, it would take a whole day to get that done.
Sure. Commercial or try to drive, it'd just take a lot longer. Right.
Mm-hmm. But that was part of it. And then there really was 3 things at Holly Farms that was big time significant. Number 1 was merger. Number 2 was Holly Pack. Number 3 was doing a study on the brand and trying to make sure that we knew what the consumer wanted and how they wanted our chicken to look, how they wanted to be able to cook it. And so we hired a fellow by the name of Skip Parker, and he was a guru in the marketing and business and establishing a brand. And he came in, and we done a 6-month study, primarily of groups of people in places like Chicago, New York, Washington D.C., Miami, Florida, and asked them what they wanted in fresh chicken in the supermarket. And they told us that they wanted a colorful product. They wanted red and yellow. Our logo before that had been green.
Okay.
We thought green was the right color for something growing, but the consumer said no, we want it to be red and yellow, and therefore they've done that. They also told us they wanted a chicken counter that was pretty. They wanted it no ice, no water. When they pick up a package, they compared it to a way a package of bacon would look, or a pack of hamburger hot dogs would look, or a pack of cheese would look, and they would take it home and feel good about that. And before they'd been used to the ice pack, they'd been used to water dripping out of that package onto the rest of their groceries. They didn't want that. They wanted something that was clearly marked chicken, clearly marked, a nice, pretty package, and a package that was clean and void of any leakage of anything. They also wanted to know how to cook chicken. Most of the people in the world in those days had been used to taking chicken and roll it in flour and put it in a frying pan and fry it. And they wanted a lot of different ways to cook chicken. And so we gave them cookbooks, and we established a brand, and we hired Dinah Shore and Mary Lou Retton to be our spokespersons to advertise for us and to tell people how they could fix chicken, all the different ways they could do it, and how it would look when they saw it in the supermarket counter.
Gerald, when that project began, when their efforts began to meet the public's eye, right? How long was it before you saw an increase in business back at the factory?
Quickly, 6 months.
Okay.
We were introduced to all those things. We hired marketing reps that would go to the supermarket on a regular basis. They had a territory that they would go to. They would check that product, make sure the temperature was good, make sure it was up to date, make sure that it looked the way we wanted it to look, way that the consumer wanted it to look, and our sales just boomed in that 6 months period in the early 70s, whenever we got the marketing study done, when we got all the things done, and we had stuff at the counter, we had flyers that had recipes on it, we had flyers on how to handle chicken, how to make sure that if the consumer wanted to freeze it after they got it home, we told them how to do that. We told them all the things they needed to know about how to handle that chicken from the time they got into the supermarket till they got it in their belly.
And all of that happened in the 70s.
All that happened in the 70s.
So what you're describing, I'm sitting here listening to that story of how change was taking place and then what was being implemented at point of sale. I don't think things have changed a whole lot since then, have they?
I have not.
No.
We still do those same things.
Mm-hmm.
We still have cookbooks. We still have point of purchase material at that counter. We still make sure that the consumer that there is a advertising program that backs up that product that they're getting in the supermarket. It backs up that product that they're taking home and cooking in lots of different ways. And it's still even today with Tyson, they was able to move all that when they bought us, they was able to move all that into their own situation, and they have continued that even to this day.
Sure. Wow.
But another few things, the point of purchase was extremely important for what we had to sell in that market. And we really were becoming of age. Mm-hmm. We really were coming of age. We had our own newspaper. We had our own jet airplane. We had good employee benefits. We had good employee relations. We had just amazing.
How was it then? How because you of all people would know how it is with the employee side. So as success began to come, and it become evident. It was playing out in the public scene, right? As in the grocery stores.
Right.
Everybody could see it. People that lived in Wilkes County, lived all over the nation. Everybody was seeing the same thing happen.
Right.
How did that affect the morale and just the camaraderie with all the folks that worked on all levels?
It was just enormous. We became one big family. We had 7,000 employees, and it was all just one big group. And everybody was so proud of our name. Everybody was so proud of what we had going for us. We were making money. We were doing exactly what the federal company wanted us to do. That it was all good. And we had a group of people, and I have to mention them that were world renowned in what they done. This group of people was responsible for the company, the bigger part, and I'll mention them to you. There was a guy by the name of Dr. Gordon Miller. Gordon Miller's a veterinarian. He was the world expert. I'm serious. He was world renowned for how to raise chickens, how to keep them healthy, how to do whatever it took to do to make that chicken produce at the most operable way, and he was world renowned for doing that. He was as good as has ever been. There was another guy by the name of Joe Gardner that knew how to run a plant. He knew how to operate that plant through in and through out. He was world renowned for that. He was just exceptionally good. And the big thing was that Frank Rhodes, he was the master salesman. He was the best at selling chickens as anybody in the world. And of course, Bonnie Rhodes was Frank's wife, the only loved daughter. She was in charge of HR, and she brought the HR department. When they first started, the HR department was the supervisor would go out on the street in front of a plant, and he would see a person. If he had an opening, if he saw a person, he'd say, "I want you to come in." And goes, Bonnie turned that into a world-renowned personnel department with the very best benefits, the very best medical department, the very best insurance, the best of everything that you could possibly think of that was good for employees. And then putting all that together was one of Fred's younger brothers, Blake. Blake graduated in the mid-'60s from NC State and poultry science, and Blake knew how to do it all. He was the leader. He came in once Fred was older. Blake's the one that came in and run the company and done all the things. So I have to say that group of people were the very best that you could imagine. And you got to have something like that. You've got to have people like that knows how the business runs from inside out in order to make it successful. And
when you've got those type of people involved, and they're dealing with the day-to-day, they're setting the vision. If you got the right people in place, when problems do come, and things happen, right?
Sure.
They're able to deal with it with a calm head, because they've got education behind them, right? They've got experience behind them. They've got the financial wherewithal behind them, so they can make all the magic happen, right?
And in the chicken business is pretty cyclical. It goes up and down based on the cost of grain, based on the cost of a lot of different things. And some years you're going to make a ton of money, and some years you're going to lose a ton of money. And these guys knew how to handle that so that we would even it all out, so that the farmer could depend on us to make him enough money that he could pay the debt at the bank for his brand new house, and he could make enough money that he could live on, and and even that out from year to year. And that's how it worked.
So if you were keeping these farmers first, it sounds like, really having the end consumers first, but if you don't have the farmers able to sustain themselves year in and year out, then you can't possibly have a reliable supply chain, can you?
Right.
So taking care of them was good business.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
And then one other event, the federal company was very impressed with us. Mm-hmm. We had made them a lot of money. They didn't have to do a whole lot of work. The company was owned primarily by the Taylor family in Memphis, Tennessee, and they decided they wanted to take the company public. And so they changed their name from the federal company to Holly Farms.
Oh, okay.
And then took the company to the public and put it on the New York Stock Exchange.
So that's how
that happened. Mm-hmm. And we was a closely held over the counter stock until then. And in late 70s, early 80s, they changed their name to Holly Farms and made it took stock public.
Do you remember that time and what happened during that time?
I do remember it very well. Mm-hmm. I do remember it very well. I had some Holly Farm stock, and I had some the early Holly Farm stock, and it switched over, and I could look in the newspaper every day and see what our stock was selling for, and it was early years. The stock was not high on the market. It was traded for somewhere between $5 and $15 a share. Mm-hmm. And another event took place, and we're getting that gets us towards the end of Holly Farms. Mm-hmm. And another big boy moves in, and Tyson. The legend is, and I wasn't there, I don't know this to be absolutely, but the legend is that Don Tyson in later in the 80s, in 1988, got up one morning and said to him, he owned Tyson Foods. He owned it completely. It was a closely held personal company that he owned. It was about the same size as Holly Farms.
Okay.
And he got up one morning and said, I'm going to buy Holly Farms. And he wrote it on the mirror. And at that time, that's our stock was selling for $7 a share. Mm-hmm. And when he got it, it took him a year to get his finances done, get all things done, and he bought the company about a year later, and he had paid $70 a share for Holly Farm stock. Now, I didn't have a lot of Holly Farm stock, but I had enough that I educated my kids with it.
Right.
It was nice. And so all that kind of fills us in to how Holly Farms came about and how it moved on into to Tyson, and I can tell you an opinion, but it is a strong opinion. I continued working for Tyson for another 10 years. When Tyson bought us, I was the VP of HR. My boss, Ms. Rhodes, had retired, and I had become the VP of HR. And then I continued working for Tyson, not as their VP of HR, but as a divisional personnel manager. And I watched them. They took this Holly Farms group, and they handled it very well. They used all the good parts. They used all the marketing research that we had done. They used all the advertising that we had done. And they moved into two things. They were primarily in the cooked chicken business and processing, but primarily reaching the consumer with a cooked product. And we was in the fresh business, and they took that and put it together and made one of the best companies could possibly be. They went on to buy beef companies, all kinds of different meat companies, pork companies, and they wound up being the number one producer of protein in the world.
Wow.
Big company.
And the people in Wilkes County and in the Carolinas benefited greatly during that whole time period, right?
Yeah. It was a good. We were fortunate. We had a good marriage when Fred Levis put it together. We had a good marriage with the federal company, and we had a good marriage with Tyson. It all worked. It all worked well, and it benefited us as stockholders. It benefited us as employees. It benefited us as a county and as a country. And it's just been an absolutely amazing trip.
Wow.
That I've been so fortunate to be a part of. And I can tell you that in wrapping this up a little bit, Mr. Eller probably processed, maybe 500, maybe 1,000 chickens a week. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But this plant over here right now, this particular week, we process, we hatch, we make the feed, we grow the chickens, we catch the chickens and bring them in and process them and put them to market. And we do that at 1,600,000 chickens a week.
In Wilkes County now?
In Wilkes County now.
2024.
Right.
Wow. So we're going to get into all of that next week on the Tyson side, Holly Farms. Oh my gosh. There are a few other things we'll need to talk about Holly Farms a little bit later. We've been tracking down as much as we can find about the Holly Farms restaurants.
Right.
And I shared something with you earlier, and you confirmed it to be true. There's a mug that we found, and we found several of them now. This little guy here.
That's right.
And what he had on the side of the glass was right here. And that was Holly Farms.
Holly Farms.
And this whole trail, we started going this trail because people said they'd hear your talks in part 1, part 2, part 3. And he says, have him talk about the Holly taters. They were the best taters in the world.
Best in the world.
So you and I...
The Holly tater was a potato that was split into pie shapes. And it was battered and rolled in the same flour that they cooked the chicken in, and they cooked it in a pressure fryer, and it was amazing.
So that's what infused the flavor so much, because it would. I remember those, and people now, even now, you'll see country restaurants, and they'll say they have taters, or some people even be bold to say Holly taters.
Yeah, right.
And you order them expecting that intense flavor, and it's just not there.
Not there.
So another question I ask you, so on this insignia says, so Holly Farms fried chicken and seafood.
Yeah.
So
they in the restaurants they found that people wanted fried shrimp along with the chicken sometimes, and so
sure.
that's what they used for that, and fried catfish. There was fried catfish and fried shrimp that people loved,
so,
and we was able to sell that in the fried chicken places.
Did you eat a little bit of that?
I eat a little bit of that. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh! Well, next time we're together, we've amassed a little collection. We'll talk about each one of these things before we get into. Actually, might do a little segment just on kind of memorabilia from the chicken industry and in the Carolinas, because it really is quite significant. But since this is such a momentous moment, and we've just wrapped up and I'm sure little pieces of Holly Farms will continue to sneak their way in as we go through our other visits. But we found this little fella here, and everybody take a look at this. Gerald, had you seen this before?
You know, I have never seen that before. That's brand new. Where'd you get that?
Look at that. I got that to get in place. So I thought there would be nothing better, no better way to end this segment. Segment number 4, our 4th visit about, all about chickens, right?
All about chicken.
So there's a little cone up there at the top. Now, since you were Mr. Chicken, I'm going to let you press that button.
That's a very good sound. Very good sound. We love it. We love it.
Gerald, we'll see you next time, buddy.
Thank you so much, Carl.
Oh,
Thank you so
goodness.
much.
Dinah?
Yes.
Dinah, you don't have to get in shape for this commercial.
Yeah, we're talking about less fat.
This commercial's for Holly Farms Prime Chicken with less fat. You can't buy a chicken lower in fat.
This is hard. How do the chickens do it?
They don't exercise. Holly Farms trims away the excess fat.
You think Holly Farms could do that for me?
No, but you can do the inline for me.
America's Cooking with Holly Farms?
New Prime Chicken with less fat, but the same great taste.
Sure beats exercise.
You don't need to exercise.
Thank you for spending time with us on Life in Wilkes. We value you as a viewer and appreciate when you share this show with your friends and family. Be sure to bookmark our channel and join us again on the next episode of Life in Wilkes.